Despite some confusion and chaos, Trent Hendrick is still eligible and is expected to play right away. Here's why it's a huge win for UCLA.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever it's your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. Welcome back, everydayers. We're diving into the chaos that is the Big Ten and SEC limiting the conferences and their members to not getting pro players. The Big Ten more so geared toward the NFL. The SEC a more blankets, denial of pro players back to college sports. And how does that affect UCLA? That's what we're going to talk about segment 1. Dive into the conferences segment 2. And 3, tarps off. I'm not telling you to take off your shirts. I'm telling UCLA to take off the tarps of the Rose Bowl. That's segment 3. So starting off with Trent Hendrick, the transfer from JMU, a stellar athlete, the Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year, somebody who UCLA would have begged and pleaded their case to transfer and come over and found the NIL funds to get him to UCLA if he was eligible to transfer in the early part of the Bob Chesney era. Well, 4 for 4 or 4 or 5 years to play 4 was still in effect. Redshirts were still a thing. And then 5 for 5 injunctions came. And here's the thing that makes Hendrick's eligibility the most valid. He was a part of the lawsuit in Louisiana that allows him to go in the transfer portal and get that extra year. But the confusing thing was he attempted to make an NFL roster. This is where we got a bit scared earlier today, and then it all got cleared for the most part. Trent Hendrick was a senior with no eligibility who, quote-unquote, declared for the NFL draft. What the Big Ten was trying to make happen was they're setting a rule. This is a quote from an On3 article. They're set to pass a rule that doesn't allow players to return from the NFL and play for a Big Ten school. All right? This is what Pete Thamel of ESPN wrote. The Big Ten put that rule in, and they don't want players to return from NFL rosters to play for Big Ten schools. The rest of it says, anyone who was declared for the NFL draft and did not withdraw, appeared on an NFL roster or signed a contract with the Pro League cannot be on a Big Ten roster. Gave a lot of fear for us UCLA fans because this transfer, Trent Hendrick, is a game changer. He's adding to the depth and making the position of linebacker, quite honestly, a position of strength for UCLA on defense, in addition to their secondary and hopefully overhauled defensive line. Lots of JMU transfers and lots of newcomers and lots of returners to make this a stronger unit under Colin Hitschler. The problem was that Trent Hendrick declared for the NFL draft, technically, but not because he left early or got a deal. He was undrafted, didn't get on any roster, and despite what the language was put out there, he is actually set and eligible to return because he's a fifth year that didn't go on any roster. He's not on a rookie deal that's going to get him more money at UCLA, so he left. He was a guy that is still getting in shape or staying in shape and was ready for the next opportunity and wasn't making those NFL rosters. If 5 for 5 was enacted earlier, he would have been in college or probably would have weighed his options differently instead of using the language declared, which I always thought was weird for a senior with no eligibility to say, oh, we're declaring to the NBA draft, we're going to the MLB draft, we're going to the NFL draft. Declaring when you had no eligibility seemed like a weird thing to put as legalese to make sure these guys couldn't get back to college. And I wonder if that'll change in the future. But for UCLA, and the coaches getting asked about how the eligibility requirements are, Bob Chesney talked about how, hey, yeah, these eligibility requirements, the court could be appealed and it could overturn any time. So 1, Trent Hendrick could lose his eligibility at any time. 2, the Big Ten and SEC's rulings, which we'll discuss a little bit more on, do not hinder Hendrick's ability to play because he fits on the very slim category of guy who would have probably stayed in college and he didn't sign and he didn't withdraw. It's not because he gave up his college eligibility. It's because the old rules, which are now the new rules, didn't apply to him, and now he sued his way to getting it part of the new rules, which is the 5 for 5. Colin Hitschler was on record at practice saying this is a dude that he does expect to play and make opportunities grow in week 1. All right, this is what Hitchell had to say about Trent Hendrick. His quotes at practice: he was begging for an opportunity to try on the league, and this is just another opportunity to get it. He was in great shape. He's a kid that lives, eats, and sleeps football, and God bless him with an opportunity here, so let's see if we can make the most of it. All right, those were Trent Hendrick's, that's the quote about Trent Hendrick from Colin Hitchler, his defensive coordinator, and a defensive coordinator who he was with at JMU. All right, so there's an expectation that he can and will play on week 1. All right, so that's huge, absolutely huge for UCLA to get a player that can be a bit of a game changer and come in and play week 1 and not have to learn the system all too much. All right, UCLA's AD Martin Jarman, his quote with the statement from UCLA: we support the Big Ten's adoption of the new professional football players rule and understand the importance of having clear and consistent eligibility standards across the conference. And this is what it was stated that made it all clear. We have been in communication with the Big Ten throughout the process, and our student athletes are eligible under the guidelines adopted today. We're excited to turn our full attention to the upcoming season and our opener versus Cal on September 5th. That is Martin Jarman's line of UCLA's good. There isn't a guy that wasn't in compliance. So the Bruins made sure to do their homework, got Trent Hendrick eligible, and despite what could be maybe a last-minute appeal from the NCAA to try and wipe out all these 5th years of eligibility for separate players, UCLA is good to go. So there was a world for moments where Trent Hendrick was just a two-day Bruin, had a practice jersey that probably had to give back wearing number 51. That's not the case. This dude is going to wear number 51. At least that's what I've been seeing and been reported at practice. And then all of a sudden, he's going to be in there, and we'll see him at Cal, playing as a UCLA Bruin, not a member of the Golden Bears, not as a member of the Hokies and Virginia Tech, as a dude that knows the defense and can, from day 1, just less than 2 weeks from the season, make an impact. All right. And while sometimes it's a little different in pro level, you can go learn the playbook and get the defensive schematics institute in your brain. He already knows what there is. And there's no school. They don't have to go back in late August. He's not trying to jump into a class right now and learn the syllabus. No. He's got it ready to rock and roll because the Bruins still have a few weeks before they even back in class. So it's football, football, football. Get acclimated to the campus. Get acclimated to the West Coast. And just play ball. And then when class comes around, he will hopefully be fully acclimated football-wise. There will be no more challenges in the court system. And there's no weird tinkering of the 5-for-5 that makes him more eligible or less so between now and by the time school starts, or by now in week 1 versus Cal. All right? So the Golden Bears should be afraid because UCLA's defense got a whole heck of a lot stronger, and despite 2 separate conferences doing their best to eliminate this pro player back to college, Hendrick isn't one of those guys. It doesn't seem like it's taking advantage of the system. It feels like it's the weird little matter of gray area. And that's like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And the NCAA is just making a whole heck of a lot harder on themselves because of the way they've handled this. All right? So he's still eligible, and we're good to go. Next, we're going to talk about why it's probably dead for Tyler Bilodeau's chances to even consider returning to UCLA, and how the SEC's latest ruling made it a step further than the Big Ten. No pro players to return to college. Next on Locked on UCLA. Before the season even kicks off, everyone's making predictions. Who wins the division? Who makes the playoffs? Who's lifting the trophy at season's end? On Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade those predictions in a live market. Think about this. Can the Raiders win at least 6 games this year? The Raiders are currently trading at a probability of 61%, meaning a $100 trade pays out at $165.25 if they can reach 6 wins. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house, and as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. Trade the draft pick and the game and more on Kalshi. Download the Kalshi app and use the code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. Kalshi, Kalshi. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Kalshi and products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more info, see kalshi.com/regulatory. So let's dive in and understand what the heck is going on in college sports. Is this the NCAA ruling? No, the NCAA has said you can never really come back from a college sport or from a pro sport to the college ranks. Now, the two biggest conferences that control a lot, right? Whether it's the CFP next model, whether it's they'll break away and make a super league, they've each taken individual stances, one a little bit greater than the other, about can pro athletes return to college sports. So let's clarify. The Big Ten, earlier in the day from this recording, this is August 25th when we've recorded, so there's been a lot of changes. It was initially the Big Ten coming out, I think it was ESPN's Pete Thamel, on 3 wrote articles too about how you can't come back from an NFL roster, declare not withdraw, sign a contract, and then go play college football. Because if that happens, then they'll suspend a coach for half the year. Something along the likes of that language, all right? So that's what the Big Ten was able to do. Big 12, ACC, haven't seen too much rumbling as of this recording. Then the SEC, I think, had said, all right, maybe we're against it, cool. Well, right before this recording, the SEC took another greater stance in the Big Ten and made it clear, all right? This is from On3. And this is what the SEC also said. I think ESPN had it first, if I've got it correct. The SEC says they are not permitted to have an athlete on its roster who has previously declared for the NFL, NBA, or WNBA draft and did not appropriately withdraw, signed a contract with an NFL or other professional football league, NBA G League, or WNBA team, or been listed on an NFL, NBA, G League, or WNBA affiliate roster, any of those professional leagues, all right? So, the rest of the statement says the commissioner is authorized to enforce this expectation with penalties against member institutions. All right? So, while the big general statement is that you're not going to see a lot of football players, the SEC went no former NBA players, no contracts, no listing on a roster, no declaring for the draft. All right? So, the Big Ten is just, all right, we're working football. That's the crazy one right now. We'll figure out basketball in a second. The SEC goes a level further. So while I'm tying this in, Tyler Bilodeau was drafted. He's played summer league, contract, a little different than an undrafted Trent Hendrick. So while it was already very small chances as of this moment here in late August that you would have seen a Bilodeau return, that door is pretty much all but shut. Unless something changes, unless UCLA gets some injunction, some form of change of heart, then this is or Bilodeau does too, wanting to return from the Nets. This looks like UCLA is either going to leave this final spot of their basketball team on the men's side open, or their Bilodeau is like, probably not going to take that spot anyways. All right. And now we had talked with Ethan Sabo about what UCLA might do for 5 for 5. So you're trying to balance a whole lot of chaos. Some 5 for 5 athletes weren't in the transfer portal when this extra year was granted, and the courts, if you weren't a part of the right lawsuit with part of the right TRO, temporary restraining order, you technically can't leave your school. That's where Donovan Dent's in this little gray area. Sky Clark was already in this extra year. LSU, who has both Clark and Dent committed at the moment, was trying to bring back RJ Lewis, who had left early and then was going to try and come back from the NBA, even though not appearing in any game and being injured. So, one, UCLA probably not going to see Bilodeau, or they'll have to jump through more hurdles to make it happen. Two, it's only a matter of time before the Big Ten goes out there and says, yeah, you're not going to be allowed to sign college contract or pro contracts and then come back to college, all right? Because we had seen Bediako try to work his way back. We had seen a lot of these college players. Heck, former Bruin, Amari Bailey, was trying to even get his way back, and the NCAA was battling with certain lawsuits to make it happen. Now it makes it clear you cannot return. This is mostly trying to stop the 5 for 5 athletes who have gone pro, gotten NBA, NFL, professional money, and they're trying to return to get a big bag of NIL or return, and they're basically a pro athlete against a college athlete. All right? And I know there's been debates of the worst pro team versus the best college team. We're not making that debate today. So basically, you're not going to see many players with the same situation as Trent Hendrick being eligible to play again. You're probably not going to see a Bruin who either on the women's basketball team, on the men's basketball team, other potential football players, or even baseball players try and make their way back without appropriate withdrawal. All right? And I think what they're trying to clarify in the future, beyond just now, is you can't just go back and forth without the correct language of withdrawing and not signing contracts and hating it and returning to college. But most of this is just to stop all these 5-for-5 athletes from going and being pros, maybe not liking it or not being set on the roster, and coming back officially as a college athlete. The SEC took it a step further. The Big Ten was focusing more on let's go after these football athletes. Let's not try to draft something crazy. While the SEC either had this in the works, saw the Big Ten made a move and wanted to one-up them in terms of the publicity, their statement, the aggressiveness and the strength behind it, or it's just a little bit late to the party and the Big Ten beats them to the punch because they went more general, while the SEC was more all-encompassing of professional sports, that they don't want to allow athletes to come back from professional ranks back down to college. Makes a lot of sense, but I think we should just try to have a little grace in this 5-for-5 transition because the NCAA is like, we're not going to get sued. We're not going to lose these lawsuits. Well, apparently that's not been the case. So we're not going to see a Bilodeau. Probably not going to see many players that fit the profile of the transfer Trent Hendrick, who one, got the correct lawsuit to get him in the transfer portal because they didn't enter it, and two, did not officially make a roster for his professional league, in this case the NFL, or sign, or technically declare with eligibility remaining, and that allows him to return. Somehow Trent Hendrick fits in all of these little categories, which allows him to return and play and contribute. Even Bilodeau could technically fit some of those, but it'd be a lot harder for him to return. All right? So I know it's getting a little crazy, it's getting a little jumbled, but let's bear with me. Speaking of bear with me, the Bruins' rivals up north, the Golden Bears, have moved away from tarps in the Memorial Stadium. I'm not telling you to take your shirts off, just like the trend of tarps off. I'm telling you, I think it's time for UCLA to be rid of the tarps. I'm not sure if there's really been any talk about it. I know there's a lot of talk leaving the Rose Bowl, but let's get rid of these darn tarps and pack it out for these early Big Ten games, non-conference games. And I'm going to tell you about that next on Locked On UCLA. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory marketing, everything works in one place. Odoo is one platform to manage, grow, and scale your business. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent, it's about having everyone working toward the same goal. And that's true in sports just like it is in business. Think about this. They're trying to bring all of these sports together in the college world, right? They're trying to balance and put it all together in one way. If they'd really put it together in one goal, and it wasn't just about talent, but putting one same goal, we're starting to see these conferences put together the rules and regulations. That's like, okay, we're working toward the same goal, fixing the game. Or UCLA recruiting, we're working towards getting a little bit better at the end of the season. Right before the season, that's where they got Trent Hendrick. And they're working towards the same goal. But great organizations win because operations matter. And that's why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. Cruising on here with Locked On UCLA, final segment of the show. Tarps off. Yeah, no, I'm not going to take off my shirt. All right, that's not what we're going to do. We're not going to do Locked On LSU a couple of years ago after their Omaha win. We're not really doing that right now. What I do mean by tarps off, please keep on your shirts. If you're watching, listening, wherever you're viewing this, we're talking about the tarps of the Rose Bowl. All right, we're looking at our brethren to the north who are doing their best to try and sell out UCLA Cal in Week 1. Arguably the best Week 1 game out there, especially on the West Coast, in terms of importance, rivalry, regionality, and importance for how these two coaches will start off their tenures. Is it going to tell me how well Tosh Lupley or Bob Chesney are going to do? No. But a win in week 1 gives either one of these coaches a chance to race out and have a good recruiting edge in terms of head-to-head victory, in terms of who could go 2-3-0 early in the season. I don't have Cal's schedule memorized in top of my brain, but there's so many things that could happen with a win either way. Cal, you could argue, had a big PR win. They sent their coach out there to rip off the tarps at their stadium in Berkeley to say, we're done with tarps. All right. And I don't know what price points. I don't really care about that. But it makes a lot of sense. Let's get rid of the tarps. Now you're looking at UCLA, who've had tarps in place for quite a bit of time now. Can we get rid of these tarps? Can we no longer have the Rose Bowl filled with just, oh, you can't walk up there? You had the Rose Bowl staff like, no, if you go sit next to these freaking tarps, we're going to just, It's like, dude, the stadium's empty. I know you're trying to control crowds, but why not encourage the entire fan base to come and play and watch and enjoy the games at the Rose Bowl? Where it doesn't matter in a literal bowl where you walk, especially if you're going to the upper concourse. And they're like, no, go back down there. What if we just erase the burden from the tarps, from the security staff, and enjoy and say, let's encourage these fans to show up and not have a max crowd of 30,000. But when the big games come into town, like the USCs of the world, like some of these other opponents, the Wisconsin of the world, we're not just filling a tarp-filled Rose Bowl. We're filling a stadium that is energized and buzzing like it was during the Jim Mora era, during a few moments in the Chip Kelly era. How it has before and will again. And most importantly, why don't we see Bob Chesney do his best impression on social media, clipping off the ties of the Rose Bowl tarps? Maybe they had that in the works. Maybe they just don't care and they want to prove it. I'm going to tell you, San Diego State and Purdue's probably not going to do it for the fan base in terms of overwhelming support because it's a unique opponent. Obviously, the San Diego fans can drive up. We'll see what the Boilermakers try to do from West Lafayette. But I mean, this is just about supporting the program. There's been so much buzz I've seen on social media and the hype and the entertainment and the just looking forward to this football season. Doesn't even need to bring a championship, but there's just so much to look forward to of, oh, I don't believe we're going to suck week 1. And beyond that, you add in Trent Hendrick. You bring in even more talent from JMU. You bring in more talent across the transfer portal. Next year's recruiting class is already a step up from what it's been over the last 5, 6, 7, maybe even decade in terms of years. The Bruins are building. They're engaging in the community. And I think the last thing we need to showcase is let's get rid of them damn tarps. All right, let's do it. And all of a sudden, we can actually not be mocked. And maybe there might be a sparse crowd here and there. I know those Rose Bowl games in early September, especially a 4 o'clock start, that's going to be hot. But I think we can get a crowd and get some good vibes and showcase that we're actually going to show up. And even if we don't, it's on us as fans. It's up to the program to develop and get good games and win those games. But we don't need a tarp to sit there so we can get mocked by a brother into the north about, yeah, that's going to happen. Let's get rid of him. And I know so much of the conversation this offseason was, are they going to be at the Rose Bowl for good? Are they going to be the Rose Bowl to the end of their deal? Will they move to SoFi pretty soon? Well, SoFi ain't going to put up tarps. Why should we do so at the Rose Bowl? Let's stop stubbing our toe and say it's time for the Bob Chesney era to get ready from the get-go. All right, this has been Locked On UCLA. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.